Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast, a show to share stories, insights, and experiences in strength, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm Michael Krukowski, host of the Strength Connection, and I'm so grateful that you can join me today. So in these episodes, I connect with some of the most inspiring and successful individuals to chop it up and learn from true life experiences that have helped them become who they are, the strongest versions of themselves. One of the greatest ways I've always learned the most important lessons is through stories. We all have them, and they make us who we are. So let's dive in. Here we go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. What's up, Paul? It's good to see you, man.
What's up, Michael? How's things? Once again, we are here.
We are here. Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I was thinking last time I chatted with you was with Dennis.
Yes.
When you guys did the charity event, and then I watched that shit live, man. Dude, what was that
I was there
like?
live as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was
a ringside seat.
Yeah, it was. I was watching it because I remember it vividly. You came out of the gate hot, and Dennis. I mean, Dennis is
a little too hot.
Dennis has that like robotic pace where he just kind of flows it, and then just go. What was that experience like rolling through?
Yeah, it was brutal. It was different as well because it was the first time I'd ever done an online event. I know Dennis had done a couple of online GS competitions. For me, it was difficult because I was unsure of what his pace was. There were two other people in the room with me who were watching both screens. But it's very hard to communicate information to somebody when they're in the middle of something like that, especially me. I kind of go radio silent and have to be in the zone of what I'm doing. And so I was anticipating him going faster. And I went out of the gates a bit too fast. If looking back in hindsight, I went out far too fast. I think the first 2 minutes were like 13 or 14 RPM.
Yeah.
With the strict clean and strict press with 224s. With 10 minutes in sight, with 10 minutes in mind, I should say. Nowhere in sight at that point. With 10 minutes way on the horizon.
Yeah.
I probably should have been coming out of the gates maybe 7 RPM, something like that. Like literally half that pace. But I expected Dennis to maybe be around 9 or 10, maybe 11 even. So I was trying to go just beyond him to put him under a bit of pressure. But he's just so experienced over that distance. I mean, he's an 11-time professional kettlebell lifting world champion. He's literally the GOAT of the long cycle.
Yeah.
It's like walking up to Floyd Mayweather and saying, can I have you fight? Only, you're not allowed to throw body punches. It's
right.
Like, okay, he's still going to win.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean? He knows what round 7, 8, and 9 feel like. Exactly. So it's, well, it is. Yes. And to bring some context, it was a long cycle, clean and strict press that you did, because obviously Dennis's experience with the jerk and stuff like that. I mean, he is the Michael Jordan of this world.
There was no point. Nobody was wanting to tune in to see me lose 100-0. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, still just to keep the bells up with a strict press like that for 10 minutes. I mean, that's just, anything just to keep the pace and be able to go through the distance of that. I thought that was so cool to see, both of you guys going. And then it was very even from both sides. I know it was a friendly competition, but you guys are both competitive.
Oh, we're competitors.
Yes.
We're both trying to kill each other. It's as simple as that. He tells you any different. He's telling fibs. No, he would tell you the same thing. Me and Dennis became friends as a result of that as well. But yeah, it was some experience. I actually held the lead on him for 7 minutes. He caught me at the 7-minute mark. That's when he equalized. And then he just slowly he was reeling me in for 7 minutes. And then he just slowly just overtook me,
Yeah.
The last 3 minutes, that's where he opened up his lead. But it's an interesting statistic that I do believe I am the only person since he's been at world-class level in any form of kettlebell competition to hold any lead on him at the end of any minute, let alone 7 minutes.
Really?
Yes, no one has ever led him for even a minute. In any form of kettlebell competition.
All right, there you go.
In Russia or internationally. So it wasn't exactly, it was a compromised event in that it was a wee bit my thing. But in reality it was a lot of Dennis's thing, if you know what I mean. Like I could, and to be fair to him, he acknowledged that publicly, and he thanked me for picking weights that were light and a distance that was challenging for me, but suited him, type of thing.
Right.
You know, like I could have made that a 1 minute double 40 kilos.
Right.
Clean it, and I just weighted it right to my double 48s.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
double 48s for max reps in a minute.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, right, fair enough. But there's no challenge that I don't want to be the Jake Paul of kettlebells.
Right.
You know, I don't want to weight everything in my favor and then praise myself when I did what everybody expected me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to not be impossible. And if I had done long cycle clean and jerk, it would have been impossible.
Yeah.
Unless Dennis somehow like fell or something and dropped the bells on his head.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was still going to be very challenging because every aspect of the competition, apart from the press, was played into Dennis's forte.
Right.
If you know what I mean. However, the press was a highly significant portion of it because it was the clean and strict press. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I can complain. His technique and his tactics were just beautiful. He just is the greatest at that, and it was an honor to do battle with him for 10 minutes and to be in the lead for 7. It's not too bad.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I love the breakdown that you guys did of it because I mean it had a lot of his strengths, but then brought yours in as well. So it's as fair as possible in
as far as we could make it, really.
Yeah, but it is watching you hold that lead and kind of like holding my breath. I was like, all right, Paul's going right there. But then seeing just Dennis's, you see what it takes like in an endurance level, type that from beginning to end to see what that is from there. Like you can learn so much from that of just watching that over and over.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting because, as I say, in a 1 set maximum, like let's just say just press, I could go so far beyond in terms of weight, right? But when you restrict the weight and you add in the 10-minute time limit and all those cleans and all that cardio and all the different places that you can be leaking energy, like compared to 99.9% of the planet, my kettlebell clean and press technique and rack position and overhead position are going to leave everybody in the dirt. But he's that 0.0000, so many zeros later, one. In fact, he's the only one out of 8 billion people who is the very best ever at cleaning, rack position, overhead. Yes, it's usually the jerk, but there's so many positions where he's just perfect, as close to perfect as is humanly possible, that it was so efficient for him. And I think that the area where he really got a lot over on me was the cleans, because he's used the cleaning double 32s and heavier for 10 minutes. Like he's done a 10-minute set in clean and jerk with double 40s. Like that's insane, right? He's done it with 36s and 40s, right? So the clean is something I'd never really spent a whole lot of time trying to optimize. It was just what I had to do to get the bells into place to press, if you know what I mean. So I could only press as fast as I could keep the pace up with the cleans without losing my grip, and also without burning out cardiovascularly. So those two things that he had, or that I didn't have as much as I should have had or could have had in those 9 weeks that I had to prepare for it, where I lost like 30 pounds. I had to lose 30 pounds as well because the rack position, my chest was too big and my biceps were too big and my waist was a bit too big as well, to be honest. And everything was just pushing. I couldn't get an effective rack position, so I had to atrophy my chest. I had to slim down my musculature and only focus on the muscles that were going to be involved in the clean and strict press. And I had to lose body fat. I had to do all that in 9 weeks. And in all those areas, he just made up that he just had that extra efficiency.
Yeah.
The next, like about a week later or something, I did a press set, which is also on YouTube, I think. It's just a strict press set with no cleans. And I did an extra 20 reps higher than what I did on the clean and press, simply because I didn't have to do all those cleans. Right? Waste all that time, waste all that energy. But for Dennis, the cleans made the presses easier. And for me, it was the opposite, you know, because he was so efficient at cleans. His technique was so good, and 24s were so light relative to his ability that it was just all that was a chance to rest his shoulders. And all it was for me was another opportunity to burn out my grip. It was just
no doubt. Yeah. What was the most challenging for you? Was it more like the clean and the grip, or was it the cardiovascular work?
Honestly, it was the grip. You know, I have very, very chunky hands. They're really like thickly muscular, but my fingers aren't that long. Like they're, you know, I look like a muscular hobbit, even though I'm tall. I've got quite short fingers and like a big muscular palm, like a big thick palm. So if I have a weakness, it would be grip endurance. You know, and funny enough, I can slam close like high number captains of crush hand grippers. I've never lost my grip short term when it comes to something heavy. Never. But grip endurance, I'm head to toe fast twitch muscle fibers. And grip endurance, but especially because of the short fingers. Like I can't make any mistakes. Otherwise, the kettlebell just slowly, it's just like a creeping death in my grip, you know. Multi-hand switch like negates that greatly, but this wasn't the case where you could do that. You know, putting them down and doing intervals negates that greatly, but this wasn't the case where you could do that either. You had to just sit there and go and go and go for 10 minutes straight. And I think his grip endurance and also his technique is just supreme kettlebell clean efficiency. And all those years under the 32s for those cleans, all those years under heavier than 32s just paid dividends. The clean was a rest. He actually said to me after it, yeah, I said, the clean was a rest for you, really, wasn't it? And he said, yes. I was like, well, the clean was the part that was shooting me in the foot.
When you just want to flick them off and say, fuck you, man.
Yeah. The press was a rest for me, but the clean dictates the pace.
Right.
You can't press any faster than you can clean because you must clean before you press.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I was kind of snookered at that pace after about 3 or 4 minutes. It was like, oh no.
Yeah.
It was just determination really that pushed me to the full 10 minutes at the end, you know.
Yeah. You know, I always thought that like that difference between, you know, like a GS style and a hard style. You know, a lot of hard style work, you don't do a lot of that high endurance base kind of clean and that drop unless you're doing like a snatch test or something like that. But anytime I've done like a long cycle clean and jerk test, kind of just testing where, you know, my PR is, it's the grip that is most challenging on that drop. So seeing, you know, someone so proficient in GS work, like there's so much little details in that technique to keep that clean position in there just to save it for everything else that you want to do that. Yeah, that technique turns into the rest once you really dial in and get that down.
Especially with that weight for him, that's a rest, you know. Like I mean, and I'm no stranger to GS either. I've represented Ireland in the GS Amateur World Championships, and I've trained world champions in that sport. But there's levels. It's like anything else. If you're training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, let's say, and your coach is a black belt, right? Well, he's the badass. He's the badass of the gym. There's no doubt about that. And he's going to be the badass in most rooms, right? In fact, as a matter of fact, there's going to be, if you're a white belt, there's going to, you know, blue belts are going to look like God to you, you know. Purple belts are going to be like, whoa, it gets better than you. Do you know what I mean? But then at black belt level, everything's relative because nothing goes higher than black belt, right? But humans do continue to get better. Right. So there's black belts and there's black belts. Right. And I would actually say I probably am the GS equivalent of a black belt at this point. I'm definitely the hard style equivalent of a black belt. But Dennis's belt is about as black as it gets. And when it comes to GS, and specifically when it comes to the cleans and the clean and jerk, you know, like he is not only a black belt, he is the best of all the black belts that there have ever been at that one event.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's an interesting distinction. Like, because usually with every level you have a beginning and an end, and when you get to that end, you graduate to the next thing. But when
But
you
there
get to
is
the
no
top
end.
level, it's an infinite
You
ceiling
know?
that goes up. So it could be so
Yeah.
many different spectrums of one
Yeah,
black
yeah.
belt versus the other. That's a really interesting perspective.
You know, so I think the thing that gave me the shot was that I'm a higher black belt when it comes to pressing than he is. So that's what gave me the shot. But obviously it wasn't enough in the end to negate all the other factors. But I give him a good run for his money.
Yeah,
It was so much fun.
I
You
love it.
know,
Rematch anytime.
maybe a rematch. Everybody's talking to me
That's
about a
it.
rematch, to be
Dennis,
honest. But
shout out to you right here, man. Put this into
we did
UFC
it for
fight night.
charity last time,
Yeah.
and it was for the right reasons. It would probably just be for entertainment and ego on this time, which I don't know is a good enough reason. But maybe if we figure out something else, another good cause, and people want to see it, I would definitely be interested in giving it another shot just to see not only to try and get a win, not just that. Me and Dennis were talking about the possibility to break the 100 rep barrier. And that would be like a race towards 100 reps would be nice. I think that would just be cool to push that discipline of 10-minute clean and strict
Oh
press
yeah.
to another level, to push each other,
That's
almost
it.
like,
Yeah, I like that.
you
I think that'd
know,
be interesting because then you can't really, it really changes how you come out of the gate a lot. You can't really
yes,
pace yourself as much.
no. Well, you have to be ready to go 10 RPM for 10 minutes straight,
Mhm.
minimum. And that's
Oh,
tough.
okay.
It's tough when every one of those reps that start in the rack position and end overhead had no leg drive whatsoever to put them there. 100 strict presses after 100 cleans in 10 minutes without putting them down. That would be something else.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Um, I think that following week I did 82 strict presses without the cleans,
Mhm.
but that's not the same thing as doing 100 clean. 100 cleans and 100 presses is really 200 reps.
Right.
Because it's 100 cleans and then it's 100 presses.
Mhm.
So Dennis was in the early 80s as well. I believe his number was like 84 or something like that. And I actually think his strict press number would be lower
Mhm.
because the cleans were helping him, where it was the opposite with me. So it would be interesting to see,
Mhm.
who could hit those 100 reps. We both agree it's definitely more than possible, but it would be a very high standard to be able to do
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, personally, I mean, as a spectator of it and just watching it from there, I enjoy, seeing that so much because we talk so much about the training piece of it and like perfecting the technique. But then when you actually put it to the test and see, like, all right, now it's go time. Now it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, like who's doing what? Like, how do you apply it? I mean, it's the same thing, like you can drill over and over again, but unless you put it to the
Yes.
test every once in a while, you don't know really
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah,
that's
yeah,
coming
yeah.
in.
Drillers make killers, but guess what? Money talks and bullshit walks. It's as simple as that. You know,
Oh,
you
yes.
know, a talk's cheap. It takes money to buy things.
Mhm.
It's where's going to put your money where your mouth is. Pressure testing. It's like you've stumbled on something that's actually very relevant there to all forms of strength training or philosophies or ethoses. Results, right? Is what you're doing actually producing results? That's the first question to ask. And then the second question is, right, well, what is the rapidity of those results? Is it quick? Are you able to get these results quickly? Is that the most important thing? Maybe not, but hey, it's definitely cool. And it's definitely a factor. And then you got to ask, well, what is the magnitude of those results in that time frame? And what is the repeatability of those results with individuals of other body types and challenges and different qualities and things like that. What's the repeatability and for how long can you perpetuate these results using this system? So those are all important questions, but everything you do before you invest time, effort, and God forbid money, right, in learning a system or investing in a system that teaches anything about improvement. This could even go beyond strength, could go into business, could go into anything. First, you want to see a track record of robust and consistent, high quality, rapid results of a high magnitude
Mhm.
across as many different spectrums of human being and circumstance as possible. then you know you've hit pay dirt. Then you know that the system you're using is as close to complete, I should say, as you can currently find.
Mhm.
You know, or at least it's close enough for you to say, right, we'll give this a shot for now. You
Yeah,
know,
it is.
so
I mean, it's a beautiful framework. You've just said that, and it seems very self-evident, but how many times we go into the things without those things before,
yeah,
without, the proof and putting in, I mean, from the work you've done, Paul, for forever now with Amazing 12, I mean, it's like 15,000 plus people or so that you've, put this through. So those results in that program speaks for itself. But, now one of the things you're doing now, really going into the strength piece again, which is these events, which is so awesome because you're doing live events again. This is the first time in a decade, really, that you're doing
yeah,
live
yeah,
events, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Why
crazy,
so
you know.
long? Why so long in between?
It's just my personality, Michael, to be honest. The Amazing 12, there's a lot to do with it. It's been very successful. So, you know, and it has required me, I think, for this long in order to help it grow to the point of where it is. And now, as we were talking about actually off air, it's reached a level where it doesn't require the same level of involvement from me at every aspect, at every level of involvement. And it has allowed me space to once again get creative around other things, which is, as much as I love the Amazing 12 and as much as you say, it has done so much good in the world. And I've taken those lessons and been able to apply them to other things in life. And I'll be forever grateful to the Amazing 12 for that. And going forward, it's always going to be, the thing that I'm known for and the thing that I probably push the most. But it's been nice. I would be remiss of me not to say it's been nice to focus on something just slightly different for a while. Um,
Do you
because
think at
my
all that that's because and I'm going to try and word this in the right way, that it almost got like easy for you to, like, for a while to
yes,
go into the Amazing 12, that in
yes,
your personality, it seems like you need something to strive for, like a little bit bigger,
yes,
to go deep into. And I
yes,
know personally you've been going so deep into mastering the kettlebell press, with this for a while.
yes.
We've chatted about that on, different podcasts before, but now it's like, does it seem like, all right, this is just a new venture that I want to really I don't know if you ever heard this quote before, but it makes me think of you all the time, man. It's from Beethoven, which is, do not just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets.
Whoa, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. And there's the
Yeah,
second part of that
that's
is, yeah, for it and knowledge will raise men to the divine. Like, that's the full quote.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you're
yeah. I
you're
love
one of
it.
the guys that I always say, like, you're diving so deep into this stuff. I was like, this is a person that emulates this quote.
Thank you so much. An immense compliment. Probably one of my best. Um, yes, it's that the press itself has been a personal passion project for me for a very long from as long as I can remember, probably since the first time I ever picked up a weight. Um, it was in many ways a prophetic moment the first time I picked up a barbell. Um, I was, well, I'd been doing body weight type training and different things. So I had been resistance training in one form or another for a while, but I'd mostly been sort of calisthenics. And, I was a boxer. And so I had started boxing 5 years prior to doing any official strength training. But I was strength training in a way, like push-ups is a form of resistance training. You're actually lifting, a sizable percentage of your body weight. And I was doing body weight exercises. Pull-ups is really heavy body weight exercise. You'd be hard pressed to go into a gym and stick 100% of your body weight on a bar and start doing bench presses. So I had been sort of unofficially strength training, but the first time I ever put my hands on a barbell, I wanted to get a barbell set, right? And my elder brother, I was 17 at this point, and my elder brother went with me to get these weights. And he's 9 years older than me, so he was 26 and had already been weight training. I was a bigger man. I was like very late developing and very wiry and thin. And I couldn't, the awkwardness of the box, it was a 110-pound York barbell set. Of course it was, right?
I know I
Isn't it
had that
all
set too.
always, right? And I found it difficult. I was 17, but I weighed 110 pounds, right? And I was actually only really entering adolescence. I was a very, very late developer, like really like abnormally late, to the point where I was worried, where everybody was getting worried, like, is he ever going to change? This looks like a child always, I was like, I can remember being like 16 and being like just over 100 pounds, and like 5'7", which for me, like, I'm 6 foot tall now, so it's funny how these things, and I'm probably close to 200 pounds, like, walking around, so it's funny how these things go about. But anyway, the barbell set was the same weight as me. And in the box, I was struggling to carry it. I was like falling all over the place. And my brother was like, you need these weights. I just gripped it, stuck it on his shoulder like it was nothing, and walked to the house with it, right? I don't know what he was, maybe 150, 160 pounds or something at the time. And he went in and he was watching TV in my mum's house, and I couldn't wait to rip it open. And I got it out in the kitchen in my mum's house, and there was this tiled floor, and if I had broke anything, she'd have broke me. So I was ever so careful. I put on like a 5 each side. The bar was like 5 kilos. It was like a standard bar. Clean press, put it down, strict press. It's the only thing I knew, because that's what you do, isn't it? When you lift the bar up, you put it over your head, and you don't use your legs because you use your arms. And slowly but surely, doing 1 rep sets, adding just the smallest amount each time, working it out the next smallest amount. Must have done about 10 sets by the time I got up, and I realized there was no more weights left to add to the bar, and I was still doing the rep, like the single rep sets. And at this point, my brother was like, stopped what he was watching on the TV and was looking in. And he says, "Is that the lot?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Hold on." And he walks out and he goes to press it. And he gets it like at about here, but it's really, really hard. And he's bigger, and he's like, "You've no chance." And I cleaned it and strictly pressed that son of a bitch without using my legs. And it was 100% body weight with 2 arms, right?
Wow.
And from that moment at 17, which is now, oh my God, I'm 44. So, 30 odd years ago, I had been obsessed with pressing 100% body weight with 1 arm, right? And the unfortunate part is, I can now press 110 pounds with 1 arm for like 15 or 16 reps, but I no longer weigh 110 pounds.
Right.
So I definitely did that, but I'm still chasing the 100% of my current body weight now. I'm hoping to lose some weight and gain some strength, and meet in the middle there and get that 100% body weight single arm press. It's been a lifelong obsession. So you best believe I've learned absolutely everything there is to learn in those 35 odd years, or 20, 27 or what, nearly 30 anyway, odd years, trying to become the very strongest that I could possibly be in the 1 arm press. And I've come a long way. I'm closing in on that. I'm closing in on the goal weight, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, it's so pressing, there's a lot of information out there on pressing, in there. And like some things are really good, some things are really poor and stuff like that. And all the work that you've done from there, and this whole first day of your new event is mastering the kettlebell press. It's all the deep details behind it.
Yep.
And what I see is interesting, because it's not just like maximize your 1 rep max, it's really to get volume in there as well, and working both of those together. And just from my own brain, it can sometimes be like, how do you work both of those together, to build this in? And you work there. So where do you see, like, in a lot of the training and a lot of the research and stuff that you did, where do you feel like there's a lot of things that people are getting wrong about how to really maximize your kettlebell press, not just strength, but also the endurance piece of it as well?
Well, the kettlebell itself holds the key to the answer to that question. It's a unique implement that, for the longest time now, before hardstyle was a thing, well, you could argue that hardstyle in some form was first and then kettlebell sport. But really, in any sort of organized fashion, kettlebell sport was first, and then hardstyle exploded and evolved a lot over the last 20 years. I've been involved in the hardstyle scene since 2001. So, over 20 years, 23 years, something like that. And I've contributed to Pavel's books. We were the first people ever to host an RKC or a Strong First event in Ireland or the UK. So I emailed Pavel just recently. I talked to John DeCane all the time. So it's like we're friends, and I love hardstyle. But really and truly, there's a lot of lessons in both hardstyle and GS, which you need to be, right? Let me put it to you this way. If you're a hardstyle press master, you're probably the equivalent of like a Shotokan karate black belt, if we're going to go back to the martial arts analogy, right? Okay. And if you're a GS master, like press master, right, then you're probably like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, competitive Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt master, right? Two very different martial arts, both very effective. And in the land of the blind, like the untrained guy or the lower level martial artist, the Shotokan karate black belt's going to kick him all around the room, especially if he pressure tests it, right? But in a head-to-head competition with that, in a no-holds-barred scenario with that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he's going to struggle, right? But what I'm trying to do, so in other words, there's benefits to hardstyle and there's benefits to GS because the kettlebell is this unique morphic shape. You can use it in ways that optimize the press that not everybody's doing. So the hardstyle guys are getting a percentage of it optimized, and the GS guys are getting a percentage of it optimized. What I'm offering at this press masterclass, right, is to try and make you the world champion mixed martial artist of the kettlebell press, right? Who would kick both their asses because he's complete, right? He's complete. He's a complete striker and he's a complete grappler. And it's not just one form of striking. Like karate, it's Muay Thai, it's boxing, it's this and that. It's not just one form of grappling. Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's also Sambo, it's Judo, it's freestyle wrestling, it's Greco, right? I'm bringing, because really and truly, the optimal way to press, technically, which will also feed over into what's possible programmatically, right? Because certain things aren't programmatically viable if you're only pressing hardstyle. And certain things aren't really that programmatically viable if you're only doing pure GS with a press, not a jerk, right?
Okay.
There's three things you must learn and you must understand. And the first one is to understand what hardstyle and GS is. The second thing is to understand how to optimally hybridize the two. And then the third and most important thing is to understand what both are missing. What both are missing, and what therefore you should add in, how you should add it in, and why that ties the two of them together and makes them both bigger than the sum of their parts when it comes to the press, right? And this is something that I've learned because of, well, my natural proclivity to coaching, my as you found out on previous podcasts, my natural proclivity towards applied mathematics and programming, right? Just a wee bit, strange.
I'm still going through that in my head. Exactly.
And also the deep decades worth of experience of actually learning and teaching both hardstyle and GS from the very best in the world, and being obsessed about this one movement. Right. So I've learned / discovered / evolved and hybridized absolutely every nuance that you could possibly think of that is in any way relevant to optimizing the one arm kettlebell press with no leg drive, both technically and programmatically. And those two things influence each other massively, you know? So I don't know if that answers your question or just makes you more confused, but that is the answer. That is it. It's if you want to optimize that one exercise, you need to know it all and know how it all fits together, and then realize what's missing and put that in so you've got a complete picture.
Yeah, no, I love the three things that you broke down of how to utilize it. I think of it kind of like a chef. It's like you need to know the system and the structure behind the systems
That's
that
a
you're
perfect
using.
analogy.
Yeah, how to optimally hybrid it. How do you infuse different things together? But then the
Yes.
third one, I think, which is interesting, like, okay, what are the missing pieces in here? What's something that maybe nobody's thinking about, resting on kind of laurels of system in there? So I want to break that down a little bit with you, Paul, like to hybridize something together. I think everybody wants to do that. Like, oh, like, I want to take this and put it together. Like they did it with chocolate and peanut butter and they worked it out, But to really make those things stick, together, that's a challenging thing. And as you said, I think obsession is the right word to do it. That's why I love that there's people like you in the world who are doing this so we can feed and we can learn from it, because it takes a lot of information. How was your process of going into taking different systems and figuring out how they work together in the most synergy?
It's a great question, and you've also anticipated where I was going to go. Before you asked that question, I was going to interrupt you and go, there's something else. But it was actually this. So here's the first thing to understand about hybridizing anything, but particularly when it comes to hard style and GS, and particularly when it comes to the kettlebell press, right? There's a way to get it right, but only one road leads to Rome, almost. There are several ways to get it wrong. And that's the one thing that people don't fully appreciate when it comes to, as you say, it's a great analogy, the cooking analogy, right? You could have all the right ingredients in front of you, and if you put them together in the wrong ratios, it tastes like shit. Essentially, right? You put them together in the right ratios, and it tastes wonderful, right? You experiment, it could go one way or another, but if you do that for long enough, you probably will find the optimal blend that is absolutely out of this world. And if you've got nearly 30 years to do that, that's probably, you've had enough time. So that is kind of what I've done, right? There was a lot of, to be fair, I kind of have, everybody has innate abilities, and I have a few, right? But as I say, I was born with these. Everybody's born with innate abilities, right? So we can't get too big on ourselves about, I'm good at this and I'm good at that. Yeah, you work to make yourself better. Fair enough. Give yourself a pat in the back, but don't pat your back too long, because realize that it's actually probably just the right thing to do, to take what you've been born with in terms of a talent and use it. You don't actually probably deserve any extra credit. And you certainly don't deserve any credit for putting something there that was just, you were born. Do you know what I'm getting at? Right.
Yep.
So I'm not throwing flowers at my feet, but some of the innate abilities I do have, as I say, one of them is a very, very, I have a photographic memory, and I have a very strong proclivity towards applied mathematics and spotting patterns and optimizing patterns to create outcomes. Right. And I do have certain athletic abilities as well. So when all these interests blended, what I have as well is an ability to separate the wheat from the chaff and to spot quality. It's always been a thing that I could do. And as soon as I seen one day, right? Well, I'll just tell you, one day I was sitting down at a computer and I Googled one arm pull up, right? In like the early 2000s, like 2001, right? And a Dragon Door article came up, right? And I read this article. It was fantastic. Took me to the Dragon Door website. And then I was like, that's that Russian guy that I've seen in Muscle Media magazine. As soon as I read Pavel's words in Muscle Media, and as soon as I read, I seen the community, the hardstyle, the actual the embryonic stages of the hardstyle community in the Dragon Door forum, I knew I was in the presence of quality, right? I knew it. I knew it instantly. Pavel has a charisma and an expertise and an authority about him. Even though he wasn't as good then as what he is today, because everybody evolves and everybody gets better, you could still see this man was different, right? And the message that he had about how to train and how to program and how to do this was a strong one, you know. And for years before that, I had also learned from some of the best coaches in boxing, some of the best coaches in powerlifting, weightlifting, you know, things like that. And I had been a prolific reader, right? And, you know, even in like the 90s as a teenager, I'm reading things like Brawn by Stuart McRobert. And it kind of just innately makes sense when he's talking about not going to failure, right? He wasn't speaking in the same terms that I've kind of stood on the shoulders of all these giants and then taken the next logical step in regard to programming ethos, right? But what became clear to me early was a reoccurring theme of spending increased time training in what could be perceived as comfort, right? And that training in comfort for, how do we define that? Sub maximal sets with weights, you know, a given set and reps that you could do a lot more with. You're not doing as many as what you could do, right? And you're slowly the proximity to 100% RPE or no reps in reserve or proximity to failure gets more and more proximal as the weeks come on, gets closer as the weeks go on, and ideally culminates in a 100% effort on a platform, right? That's weight cycling. That's the periodization model in microcosm for lifters, right? So when I looked at this and over the years thought more about it and refined my own process more and more, you know, almost like an epiphany, it became clear to me that the longer you spent training in relative comfort, the longer you could progress and the easier you could progress. Because it's way easier to progress something easy and light than it is something heavy and difficult. And it's also way less likely to trigger a threat response from your central nervous system. And if it doesn't trigger that threat response, progress can be perpetuated and you know, stretched out for much longer, you know. So it's like you look at a training cycle for a powerlifting meet and it moves like a pyramid. It has this base of higher volume, lower intensity, and then an inverse relationship between volume and intensity, which increases in terms of the intensity, decreases in terms of the volume and potentially even frequency, that culminates in literally the least amount of volume and frequency that you can do, one set of one rep, right? A 1 rep maximum, okay, ideally. And this is usually good for somewhere between a 5 and 10% improvement if done correctly and optimally, right? But what if you took your eyes off the peak for a really long time and focused on expanding the comfort zone around the base and just made the base wider and wider and wider and wider? And you know this is going, right?
Right, okay.
The eternal base build. Well, it's a lot easier to make that wider than it is to make that peak higher, but guess what's happening? The wider that base gets, what's happening to the peak? It's going up.
And higher
it literally
higher.
has no choice. The height of a pyramid is directly proportional to the width of its base. It has to be, right? If I can significantly improve any percentage of 1 rep maximum, I have successfully improved every percentage of 1 rep maximum. Now, in terms of immediate performance, you're going to see the most improvement. The magnitude of improvement is going to be most observable directly north and south of the percentage that you've created the improvement in. What did I just say? So let's say, for example, you created massive improvement in the 50% 1RM range. It's going to affect every range, including 100%. But the ranges that it's going to affect the most are 40% and 60%, something between there and 50, obviously, right? But here's the kicker. You don't have to worry about that because you're not going to peak anyway, right? It's going up. All you've got to do is keep improving the base which I'm not necessarily saying 50%, because I actually think that's probably too late, right? In most cases. But wherever you are creating and eliciting this progress, this base, yeah, you're having most effect, maybe 10% up and 10% down, but you're also affecting every percentage. You can't improve any percentage of one rep maximum without affecting them all.
Mm-hmm.
I can't change what represents 60% without also changing what represents 70 and 80. It can't, it's a mathematical impossibility, right? And yes, you're not going to impact the upper ones as much as the ones that you're close to, unless you're in those upper ones. That's not for now. However, right? You don't have to worry about it, because all you have to do is increase that base, right? And the higher and higher load that continues to represent the percentage that it used to brings you closer and closer to what your 100% used to be, but now it's the percentage where you're at, which is really lower than 100, a lot lower. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So what you're essentially doing is expanding your comfort zone until it envelops your maximum, right? And now your maximum is somewhere in the stratosphere, but you don't even have to care, because the best way to improve it is to forget you've even got one and just keep building the base wider and wider and wider and wider, right? And the kettlebell offers the most unique opportunity ever, potentially the best. It's a big statement, but I'll make it the best opportunity to do that, because its unique shape allows you to learn a hybridized version of power and endurance efficiency based techniques that allow you to do more with more, right? So it is literally custom made to expand the comfort zone with, which is almost impossible to do, especially for the upper body, as well as it can be done with a kettlebell. And one of the most profoundly
why is that with it?
affectable exercises is the press.
Why is that? Is it because the design of the kettlebell, there's just the safety of it to go into that zone it's a lot more wider?
Yes. If you try, right, okay, so the barbell back squat, right? Let's go straight to the place nobody wants to go to. Somebody had to say it. Everybody was thinking it. No, I mean, listen, the barbell back squat is a combination of hell on earth and heaven personified, because there is the most bang for your buck progress to be made in terms of athleticism, strength, size, natural anabolism, all this cool stuff, mental toughness, even cardio to a certain extent. But you must be willing to pay for that with your very soul, right? If you really want to get the most out of what that exercise has to offer. But if we look at it from a hypertrophy perspective purely, right, which will also have massive impact to strength, and I can go into that as well. Those two things should be mostly synonymous. Anyhow, I digress. If we look at the barbell back squat purely in relation to muscular hypertrophy, excuse me, we realize that it enjoys a storied history of advantage in that regard over almost every exercise, if not every single exercise in existence. In other words, if you become truly committed to ass to grass, high to medium bar placement, medium to narrow stance, or even power stance, barbell back squats, particularly for high volume, you're going to gain more muscle doing that than what you will anywhere else on your body doing. You're going to gain more muscle in your legs doing that than what you are in your legs doing anything else, or what you are anywhere else in your body doing anything else for those places, right? It literally just slabs muscle onto people's bodies like nothing else. And it has downstream effects in hormone production, and people have even noticed muscle growth in their arms from doing squats, right? It's not common, but people have, okay? And their traps and all that, and the whole 9 yards, okay? So what are the reasons for this? Well, there are several. It's like anything else. It's a multifaceted thing. It's a compound movement, which uses multiple muscle groups across multiple joints. And it uses some of the biggest muscle groups in the body. So it may, you could argue that even if you create the same relative growth in your legs as what you do in your biceps, it's going to produce more absolute muscle tissue, because 5% on your quadriceps equals a higher muscle weight than 5% on a much smaller group like biceps.
Right. Yeah.
Right. However, even considering that, the squat produces more muscle, even relatively speaking, right, than something like barbell curls or even bench presses, right? So it's deeper than just it's the biggest muscle groups. It's deeper than just it's the highest poundage potential. Where its real success lies is in the interset structural rest that it provides you with, okay? So when you've got a bar resting on essentially everything apart from your axial skeleton, i.e. your cervical spine and your head, right? Well, that would be very precarious. Yeah. I think I'll just put this on my head. See what happens. It wouldn't work out well.
Somebody's tried it, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'd pay money to watch it, but I wouldn't do it.
Right.
So it's literally resting across the broadest part of your body in most people. And it is stacked perfectly over your body's center of gravity, pretty much perfectly, and over every bone in your body almost, right? Your entire musculature, and more importantly, your entire skeletal structure is supporting that weight. And when your knees are locked out, your quadriceps are relaxed, right? So that's where the phenomenon of like Randall J. Strausson's super squats, like the 20 rep breathing squats, that's where that came from. The old expression was to do 20 reps with your 10 rep max. Now that's a paradox, right? If you tell anybody to do 20 reps with their 10 rep max, it's like, well, how many weeks have I got to train for this? No, just tomorrow.
Today.
Right? Well, you're insane. Okay, this conversation is over because you're mentally ill. It's like with a bench press, that wouldn't be possible because your 10 rep max is your 10 rep max. On a squat, it's possible if your 10 rep max was done in continuous tension style normally, where you're not fully locking out your knees and you're taking a breath in immediately and going straight back down, straight back down, straight back down. That you'll burn out quick doing that. So whatever your 10 rep max is like that, then you stand up at the top of the 10th, relax your quads and keep breathing. And keep breathing and letting the prime movers recover. And then take a deep breath, pressurize your abdominals, increase your inter-abdominal pressure, and bend your knees and go down again. You'll get another rep. And then at the top, let the quads relax again and breathe and breathe and do it again and again and again, right? When done like that, squats become almost a case of not muscular failure, but emotional failure.
Right.
Because although it's not 100% and it's not perfect, you can always take more structural rest, interset recovery, meaning during the action, the recovery's happening during the actual set. You haven't put the bar back in the rack, but you are essentially doing rest pause reps. Because your body is acting as the power rack, your skeletal system is, right? And this allows you to do more with more. And what I mean by that is using that technique, you'll be able to do more reps at every given percentage of your 1 rep maximum, except 100% for obvious reasons, on the barbell back squat than you will, relatively speaking, with the same percentage on any other exercise, particularly upper body exercises, even big upper body exercises like the bench press, because the bench press is only structural rest is your arms and your wee bony wee wrists, right? The resting point is across your wee bony wrists, right? Your feet on the ground is the equivalent of the wrists in the squat, but the gravity of the situation isn't bending your legs like this when you're locked out. You're perfectly balanced. The balance point is across the breadth of your entire back on the squat. So your whole structure is carrying that weight while your quads are relaxing. You can't do the same thing with, let's say, triceps and chest on the bench press. There's a constant tension there at all times.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The kettlebell allows you to rest. The kettlebell allows you to gain interset rest. Once you have mastered various rack positions, right? And there's a number of different ways to do that. And the optimal rack position is going to depend on body type. It's going to depend on limb to torso ratio. It's going to depend on whether you're doing 1 or 2 bells. And it's going to depend on whether you're doing jerks or presses, right? And it is slightly different for all of those things. And this is where GS kind of doesn't fully get it, because the press isn't really a thing in GS.
Right.
So already we're seeing how the worlds of hardstyle and GS actually both don't have the answer to that. But yet without them, it wouldn't be possible. Right? So you have to have GS to get this answer. You have to have hardstyle to be able to do it. But neither of them actually hold the answer to that. So it has been 30 years of experience that has shown me the answers to all these questions, and how to not only to answer them for me, but to answer them for you and the 7-foot guy over there and the wee short guy over here with the big belly and the this and the that and all those things, you know, and whether or not it's a press or a jerk or a this or a that. This all changes. And how do we use that rack position for whatever the training goal is? If the training goal is strength, we use it slightly differently than what we do for the way I did for Vasilev for a 10-minute set or something like that. Yes, there's crossover, but we're talking about optimal. So it's important, you know, as Jack Reacher would say in an investigation, details matter.
There it is.
Do you know
Get
what I
Alan
mean?
Richin in here. Yeah.
You know, listen, you got to get a bit of Reacher going in anything we're talking about muscles. But, you know, but that's the thing. The kettlebell's unique morphology allows you to essentially, once you master it, and once you master what I'm talking about, it essentially allows you to turn the kettlebell press into shoulder squats. You know?
Gotcha.
And so what's the growth potential for your shoulders? It's insane if you want to go that route, but maybe that's not your goal, but it's insane, right? What's the strength potential for being able to, there's a reason, well, there's several, why the squat not only adds more muscle than, say, the bench press, both relatively and absolutely, but why it also gets stronger at a faster rate in most people than upper body lifts, right? And obviously one of the big reasons is the standardized tools that we've chosen to work with is the barbell, right? And they have standardized weight jumps, and you're going to be absolutely stronger usually, given equal training dedication to both lifts. You're going to be, in an absolute sense, stronger on the back squat than you are on the bench press. So therefore, those standardized barbell weight increments are going to represent a lower percentage of your squat max than it would your bench max. So therefore, it's going to be easier to progress them because they're smaller. But even regardless of that, you can train your squat in such a way that it jumps by more without even having to use small increments. And one of the big reasons for that is because you're able to spend all this extra quality time under tension, all this extra, what would you call it? Acceptably high RPE reps at a relatively high percentage of 1 rep max, gaining all this exposure to extra force production in an environment that's also conducive to the buildup of fatigue metabolites and all the things that are most conducive to creating muscle growth and stimulating it from multiple different avenues independently and with each other. So it's like, it's just such a powerful way to train. It's one of the reasons why rest pause training really took off in the 80s and the early 90s for upper body type pressing, because you could take a much heavier weight than you could do 10 reps with, and do 10 reps with it by taking it from a power rack at the, you know, let's say at chest level for bench press, doing pin presses, let's say.
Right.
Just by resting, just that extra wee bit of rest in between those reps allowed you to still get 10 reps in an acceptably short space of time to still constitute it being a set, but with enough rest in between those reps for you to be able to do that set with a much heavier weight, a higher percentage of your 1 rep max. And by even doing that over a period of time, it made it easier to face that 100% and slap it out of the way for a new 100%. You know?
Yeah.
So there's so much benefit with the kettlebell. It's even better than that, because just like the back squat, you can turn your body into an organic rack and do rest pause reps, a higher volume with a higher percentage of your 1RM if you want to, with any given percentage. So it's beautiful.
It's so interesting with the interset rest. I remember I talked to Dan John talking about squatting. He said, like, the worst thing about back squats is you can always do another rep. And and at the time I kind of like, what are you talking about? And it's the same thing. It's that stacking position where you allow your prime movers to rest for a minute. But he's like, and he said, he's like, mentally you're going to break down before physically you're going to break down, because you can just
100%.
always do another one. So the way that you brought that around to the kettlebell position in the rack, I can see it. So it's setting up the technique so you have that interset rest. So essentially you're resting in between drives from there. And I see GS style has done that very well in long cycle based work of getting that perfect rack position to be able to hold in that spot. But then I can see like the hard style work of having to keep that tension up to explode, up into that range
100%.
RPE.
It's different, you see, because a GS rack position can be different because the exercises are different, right? Like if you watch the Olympics, right? I'm jumping all over the place here,
I love it.
I promise you I'll tie it all in with a golden thread. Just watch this happen, right? So sit back and enjoy the ride for a second, right? So if you watch Olympic weightlifting, right? And you'll see that at the top of a clean position, the individual is in a sort of a Olympic front squat position, right? They're not in a military press position. They're not, right? So that is because they're trying to almost disable the upper body to, well, it's for several reasons. It's optimized for what's going to happen next, right? And what's going to happen next, ideally in Olympic weightlifting, is the largest muscles of the lower body are going to take over, right? And they're going to explode and bump that bar up. And this is the perfect position to then push yourself under, to be too weak, really, to take away the temptation to drive with the triceps too much and the shoulders too much, and to relegate the arms to being merely objects that can quickly push yourself under and receive the weight and stabilize it overhead. You still have to have insanely strong triceps and delts to do that with those exaggerated weights,
right?
That are possible with something like an Olympic jerk, which is why most Olympic weightlifters also train strict overhead press and tricep movements as well. So I'm not saying that, but it's not a press even slightly, right? So the rack position changes in GS as well, right? Because there's actually more than one rack position that you're going to have to use at different times in a set, and those rack positions have to change based on your body type, based on the load that you're using relative to your maximum, based on the volume of the set that you're planning to do. So it's like borrowing from GS, borrowing from hardstyle, and then the big thing is realizing how to change both to make what it actually should be for this one thing. So you can't use a purely GS rack position is probably the bottom line here to optimize the press, and you can't use a purely hardstyle rack position to optimize the press, right? So I'm gonna go into it all when we go into the event.
That's awesome.
I can't wait to do it. I really can't wait to do it.
Yeah, there's so much detail. There's so much intricacies in this of getting it. But as we said before, like you said, like the best programs, they prove results, and I've seen over and over again the work that you're doing, not just from the Amazing 12, but the work that I've seen from clients you have of doing these presses. And peaking, elevating this over and over again from there. So as I said, I'm so pumped that you're doing these live shows. I hope you do more of them as it goes on and it keeps rolling.
Yeah.
From there, I know this is the first of many, but yeah, man, I love everything that you're putting out. So Paul, dude, I appreciate you coming on today and diving in. So in the US here, June
Yes,
15th and 16th, Charleston,
that's
South
correct.
Carolina. This is a
Yes.
two-part event. First day is mastering the kettlebell press. Day 2 is the pillars of power, which goes into the other sides of training. You can do one day or the other, or you can get a group package. You can do the whole weekend. Obviously, guys, if you're going to go, I would recommend going for the whole weekend. Get everything that you can from this man here. But I'm assuming, are there still tickets available to this for people?
Michael, there is still tickets available, but they are going at a rapid rate. I was actually really surprised that we're running 2 events, and one's in Ireland and one's in the US. Obviously, I'm Irish, and I expected the Irish event to sell out fast, but it was on really short notice in Ireland. Like, it's only a month away, and it has still, it's really, really filled up amazingly fast. But what I was shocked at, I was expecting the American event to end up at roughly the same numbers, but I wasn't expecting it to almost hold pace day for day with Ireland. So there's really not as many places left as people might think. So if you're going to do it, it's first come, first serve. I would get on it, and the website is paulmcilroylive.com. Live, sorry, my accent. LIVE, paulmcilroylive.com.
Perfect, man. Yeah, and we'll put these guys, go check it out in the show notes so you can grab that. Hopefully there's still tickets available by the time you listen to this. But Paul, I'm going to have you come back after this event, so we'll go over it, recap it, and then look at the next spot. But brother, I seriously appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you do for this community, for all the work and strength. And again, thanks for the time today, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. Listeners, go check out Paul. I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait. Go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.